right, so today I'm interviewing Janique Stewart. Is that how you pronounce it?
Yes.
Janique.
Yes.
She's a sought after speaker in the United States and abroad because of her vast expertise on the topics of sexual integrity, dating, and abortion. That makes her a super hot topic. Her relevant experience comes from nearly 10 years of working full time with ministries that dealt directly with sexual issues ranging from sexual purity, pardon me, it makes me nervous to just even talk about, ranging from sexual purity, crisis pregnancy, and even a statewide campaign to protect traditional marriage as one man, and get this, one woman. All right, hello, Janique. How are you?
Well, hello. Thank you for having me.
There is so much to talk to you about, but I think I want to go all the way back. What caused you to go into this realm of work?
Well, initially, I have been pro-life since I was in Europe. I'm not actually from the United States. I was born in Germany, Wiesbaden, Deutschland, and growing up in Europe, my Oma, our grandmother, when she would take us to school, she would take us by, as we're driving, by the old train cars, and she would tell us stories about what happened during the
Oh
Holocaust. And
my
she
gosh.
said specifically that everyone has an opportunity to stand up for a Holocaust or genocide of their generation. But she would always say, mark my words, everyone is going to have a Holocaust or a genocide in their generation. And everyone's going to be either one of four people. Of course, the worst individual to be is the one that's the actual victim.
Right.
But most people will fall into one of three categories. The first category were those people that wanted to pretend that it wasn't happening. They did not want to be bothered. They were very apathetic and indifferent to the injustice that was happening around them. The second group of individuals were those who actively participated, whether they were the ones who were turning in their own friends. I mean, she had friends. Of course, she was a child, but she distinctly remembers family friends that would turn and literally turn in their own Jewish friends for money or for whatever reason. But the point is that sometimes people will choose to participate in evil, whether it's through silence or whether it's
Omission,
actively.
right, right. So that's the second group. What's the
Absolutely.
third group? Is the other
And
group?
so the third one are those like Dietrich Bonhoeffer or the Sophie Scholl, those who said, listen, not on my
Good for
watch. As
you.
far as it depends on me, I'm going to do whatever I can.
And that's the
And
you.
people,
That's what your Oma. That's amazing. That's an inspired story. Your
well,
Oma knew who
yes,
she was talking to because years later, is she still alive?
she isn't.
Does
No,
she know
she
that you're
is.
doing this work?
No, she died when we were much younger.
Okay, well, her
But
job.
yes, unfortunately, she did. But
Oh,
Oma would
that's
always tell us that we have to rise up for such a time as
wow.
this. We all have a calling, and we're called to fight against injustice.
Okay, and the
And
injustice that you're
yes,
fighting is prevalent right now. Your organization is called Love Protects.
well, there's two. There's the Life Training Institute,
Uh-huh.
and then I also have Love Protects. Love Protects deals specifically with various types of sexuality. So whether it's talking about pornography, talking about sexual integrity, or talking about why I believe in natural marriage as God defined it. And at the Life Training Institute, what I do there with Scott Klusendorf, who is our president, I am a speaker where I travel all over the United States and all over the world doing what's called pro-life apologetics, where we train audiences to defend the pro-life position using science and philosophy so that we can debunk the lies of Planned Parenthood and debunk the lies of those who believe that abortion
Wow.
is a good thing for women when we know that it isn't.
One of the groups that I really hate the most is Planned Parenthood. You just hit on something, and I'd like to go back to it. I mean, it's obvious why abortion is bad for women, but can you please explain the top three reasons, in your opinion, why it's bad? Something that young women can grasp onto that they are absolutely not hearing, because all they're hearing is that this is a choice, this is your body, this is your
Sure.
opportunity to do what you want to do.
Well, actually, I can clarify it by asking one question. There's only one question that's at the foundation of this debate, and it's the single question that we must ask, which is, what is the unborn? Before we can say if we can kill the unborn, we need to answer what is the unborn. Now, why do I say that? Because number one, what's the target of that abortion? Who is the target of that abortion? It's not her. I mean, think about it. If women were trying to abort themselves, that would be called attempting what?
Suicide.
Exactly. They're not attempting
Which is not
suicide,
right.
nor are they attempting some form of self-mutilation or some type of body dysmorphic disorder. No, they're targeting one specific area, the uterus, and what's inside the uterus. And we know what's inside the uterus, the unborn. So we must answer, what is the unborn? If the unborn is basically having an abortion is like getting a root canal, well, guess what? We don't really need to justify that. If the unborn is just getting rid of some disease, we don't need to justify that. It's great to get rid of cancer. But the unborn is not cancer. The unborn is not like getting rid of a tooth that is decaying. If the unborn is a human being or a member of the human family, then they're also worthy of the exact same human rights that you and I are. And so that's why we must answer the question. Now, I want to be very clear, Sonia, when we talk about answering the question, we don't answer it just from our opinion. Why? Because our opinions can be wrong. And any time that we're trying to justify behavior, we'll do two things. We will devalue that human being, and we will dehumanize them by claiming, well, it's not really a human being.
Just matter. But science now backs up the fact that it's a life. Years ago, Planned Parenthood could get away with that lie.
That's why whenever I'm speaking, whenever I am doing conferences or seminars or whatever, now, after we ask that question, what is the unborn, we have to answer that. And we answer that using science and philosophy. Even when you look at Faye Waddleton from Planned Parenthood, she was the longest reigning president. Even by her own admission, she says that we've deluded ourselves into believing that abortion is not killing. So any pretense that abortion is not killing is a signal of our ambivalence, a signal that we cannot say, yes, it kills a fetus. And what is fetus? Latin for little one or offspring. So we know Planned Parenthood knows exactly what it is that they're doing. But you ask me, what would I say to a young woman who may not have this information? We have got to get them thinking, wait a minute, what is the unborn and what does abortion do to the unborn? Abortion does not just transplant it. That would be great if an abortion was just taking and transplanting it into another woman. That would be phenomenal. But that's not what abortion is. Abortion intentionally kills an innocent human being.
In the most brutal way. And even if
it wasn't, some people say, but what about when it comes to like early stage abortions where you can get a chemical abortion where it's not as brutal? Let's be honest. Anytime you intentionally kill a human being, it's brutal. It doesn't matter if you're giving them, some type of injection. It doesn't matter if you're ripping them limb from limb.
I'm absolutely not trying to diminish the techniques, but I am appalled, first of all, that our society's come to the point where we are so cavalier about it and we don't view it as abortion. We call it everything but murder and abortion. And the second thing is it is done so barbarically. It is done in such a way that is unimaginable.
You were giving the intro that I used to be the director of a pregnancy clinic called First Care Women's Clinic down in Boca Raton, Florida. That's when my eyes were opened to the fact that this is an industry. The abortion industry is oftentimes cloaked in darkness, where they don't want people to know the truth. But Jesus said, hey, you shall know the truth, and the truth will set you what? Free. But they don't want people to be set free. And I remember having counsel. Women would come into our clinic, which was to help them, to empower them to be the mother that they already can be, that they already are. They just don't realize that yet. And they would oftentimes, in a panic, leave ours, go down the street to an abortion clinic. Then, after the fact, they'd come back and for counseling, saying, I would have never had that abortion had I known.
Wow.
More. They're crying. Even sometimes young men would come in for counseling and they would say, I would have never asked my girlfriend. I would have never said, I'll support you, whatever it is that you want to do. Had I known that it
Wow.
was that was my son or my daughter that I killed. And I didn't know it until sometimes they saw what was actually
Wow.
going
Curious,
through.
because I really don't know the answer to this. How much rights do the men, the fathers of these children, have in this, not only this decision, but the procedure itself? Or
Zero. No. No, none. None.
are you under, are women under any legal obligation to even inform the male, the father?
I do believe that's probably state by state, but for the most part, no.
Interesting.
There is no law saying that you must get consent. There is parental consent for minors, but there is not some type of romantic consent or spousal consent. There
Yeah.
isn't. There's
I'm
only
always curious
parental
about the man angle, the male angle, because I don't know how many people are speaking up for their particular rights, especially in this, because they claim this is just about a woman and a woman's body, and you've clarified very well how that
No,
isn't
the
so.
science tells us from the very earliest stages of development. I mean, this is even in science books, okay? That from the very earliest stages of our development, meaning at conception, the unborn, number one, was living, meaning it was alive.
Mhm.
It was distinct, meaning separate from her body, but it was a whole human being nonetheless. And because it's a whole human being, a woman's body does not build that baby the way we think. I mean, we think of like Build-A-Bear, where you build a bear.
Are you saying that abortion should be illegal? I just want to be clear about.
Well, what I'm ultimately saying is that the legality does not really matter as much as it's morally wrong.
Right.
Now, the reason why that's critically important, there are many laws that we have on the books right now where they might be legal, but it doesn't make it moral.
Right.
When we look back in history, slavery was legal, but that did not make it moral. The Holocaust in Europe, as my Oma will attest to, was legal, but that does not make it moral.
Right.
Just because we have the right to have an abortion doesn't mean it is right, and it doesn't mean we should have that right.
That's got to be an uphill push to convince kids that of what you're saying, because
Actually, so initially, in the beginning, sometimes whenever I'm speaking, you'll see students with their arms crossed.
I bet. I can imagine that.
With an attitude.
Yeah.
As I go through, because I'm using science, and I use, for example, I use that quote from Faye Waddleton from Planned Parenthood. I use quotes and research that's not from pro-lifers, but those who are actually consider themselves to be pro-choice or even pro-abortion. And at the end, many of them will say, and I also do show, there's a right way to show abortion imagery where it shows the aftermath of abortion.
Do you actually show that?
Absolutely. And let me tell you, across the board, many of them will say, I had no idea. Many times they'll say two things. One, I'd never really heard the pro-life position before. No one ever took the time to really explain it the way you did. I didn't know that the science really confirmed that it was more than just a clump of cells. But they'll also say, I had no idea that that's what abortion did. And then they'll even say, I mean, sometimes they're upset. Initially I'm thinking, oh my gosh, you're upset with me. They're like,
no.
How can this be legal? They're really
exactly
how in the world can this be legal? And why have I been sold a bill of life?
It's been kept in the dark, right? And they have been. So now you're getting to. Let me ask you one question before I get into the college situation. How do you get these kids, these teens, these people to come to see you? Because I can't imagine you being able to go into the public school system to talk about this.
Oftentimes it is by word of mouth, or people will say, hey, I heard you were at this school, or I saw you on this, or I read about you in this article. Will you come to my school? But I also have someone who books the speaking engagements, and we go into high schools of the Life Training Institute, colleges, universities. Really? And that's, of course, how I was invited to initially speak at Cornell.
Okay. So now she's been booked to go to Cornell University.
Yeah.
And that's what I initially heard about when I invited her to come and talk to you guys and let you guys know who she is. So I was like, my mouth was just wide open when you were telling me that you had booked a speaking engagement that was set for when?
It's actually scheduled for April 23rd.
So right around the corner. So right around the corner, you're getting ready to go to Cornell University. You're all set. You got your little jacket on, your suitcase. You're ready to go. And what happened?